There's another great big one that they unfurl on Flag Day on the George Washington Bridge. She is going to go up in a hot air balloon and unfurl the world's largest free
And she's not excited at all, by the way.
And she's just finding out about it now. She had no idea why she was in that basket. She didn't know a balloon was attached.
Today she's officially a basket case.
Yeah. Right, absolutely. And by the way, I just got to make an announcement. Steve, I don't know if you can back this up.
Hot Air 9.
The denting has begun.
The denting.
Suddenly, there's already a wedge for my body on the couch.
Oh,
the denting has begun on the new couch.
Hold on a second, Brian. Let me understand. It is Flag Day.
Yes.
It is the president's 71st birthday.
Yes.
And you start a 3-hour show talking about how your couch is lumpy?
Denting, yeah.
Okay, just curious.
I'm just,
it's always about Brian Kilmeade.
Right, absolutely.
Today's about Abby Huntsman. It's great to have you.
Right.
It's good to be here. And this is the first time on the show
you missed last
studio.
weekend.
Well, you've been spending all your time building this by hand. So I just want to thank you personally, Brian.
Right.
It's beautiful.
I got myself a Sawzall, and I'm still using a manual drill.
There you go. Well, whatever. It looks great today, although, keep in mind, that part of the couch, lumpy.
Well, good morning to all of you. We do want to start, though, with some other headlines we're watching closely with Jillian. Good morning, Jillian.
Good morning, guys. That's right. We do have a lot of breaking news that we want to get to. A massive fire tearing through a London high-rise overnight, leaving at least 50 people dead. There are concerns the building may collapse. Take a look at this video right now. Witnesses watching in horror as trapped residents scream for help and wave flags. The fire starting early in the morning when most people were sleeping. At this hour, the fire is still burning. The cause is under investigation. There was work being done at that building. We will stay on top of that and keep you updated with the very latest. A U.S. college student back on American soil this morning after being imprisoned in North Korea for more than 17 months. 22-year-old Otto Warmbier landing in Cincinnati overnight, where he was taken to a hospital in a coma. North Korea claims he contracted botulism last March, shortly after being sentenced to 15 years of hard labor for trying to steal a political poster. Other details about his condition are unknown. The White House calling his release a major victory. Happening right now, a nationwide manhunt for a pair of escaped inmates who killed 2 prison guards. Donnie Rowe and Ricky Dubose overpowered the guards on a prison bus. This happened just outside Atlanta, shooting them with their own guns.
I saw 2 brutally murdered corrections officers. That's what I saw. I have their blood on my shoes.
They are on the run in a green Honda Civic that they carjacked. Both men have long histories of violent crimes. Rowe is serving life without parole. Police now offering a $70,000 reward to find them. President Trump will soon present the military's highest honor for the first time. Next month, veteran Army medic Jim McCloughan will be recognized with the Medal of Honor for his incredible bravery in Vietnam. McCloughan saved 10 wounded soldiers, carrying each of them out of a heavy firefight, getting injured by shrapnel in the process.
I was doing my job, though. I want you to know that. That's the job that was given me. And my father told me at a very young age, if you're given a job, son, don't do it halfway. I love those guys, and I know they love me.
The ceremony is set for July 31st. And we do want to clarify one thing, by the way, that London fire story that we just mentioned a few minutes ago. We don't know the number of dead, but at least 50 people are in the hospital. So we just wanted to clarify that. But still, regardless, that is a really tragic story coming out of London, guys, at this hour. So
yeah, there's no easy way to take down when a building that size goes on fire. We still don't know how to put it out quickly.
You got to have the right equipment. All right, Jillian, thank you very much. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about this. I'm sure you saw it yesterday on the channel. Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General for the United States of America, he was strong. And he was combative when he needed to be, because he wanted to make it very clear, and we got a bunch of sound bites for you this morning. First up, this whole thing about Russian collusion. If you think I did that, well, let him talk.
I was your colleague in this body for 20 years, at least some of you, and and the suggestion that I participated in any collusion, that I was aware of any collusion with the Russian government to hurt this country, which I have served with honor for 35 years, or to undermine the integrity of our democratic process, is an appalling and detestable lie.
Strong.
I actually thought that might have been his strongest moment, because that came on pretty early in the hearing, and he's sitting there. You remember, he's been in the Senate for, what, 20 years. And he said, I'm sitting amongst many of my friends. Many of you know me very, very well. I have worked for this country for almost 40 years. Sure. You think that I'm going to try to undermine this nation? I mean, that was a really strong moment for him.
Especially if you come up in the Cold War. The worst thing you could ever do is collude with the Soviets, now the Russians, in order to win an election for a guy that he clearly supported Donald Trump. But he's saying, even for a family member, I wouldn't give up my country for that. But I also thought he covered a few other points. Why he recused himself was interesting. Because I was going to recuse myself anyway because I was involved with the campaign. So as soon as the Trump campaign got investigated, was the subject of it, I had to recuse myself. Now, he would not answer questions about, did you have a heated exchange with the president at any moment? Did he ask for your resignation? And what about when James Comey, did James Comey tell you he was uncomfortable being one-on-one with the president? Because he did say that, but he didn't think it was that big a deal. He didn't complain about any other things to that.
If you look at Elizabeth Warren's Twitter feed, it says, you know, she was a live tweet.
Why would you do that?
Well, it was in the packet today, so I was reading it for entertainment purpose, and it was hilarious because it wasn't even true. Because it talked about how Jeff Sessions had to recuse himself because he had lied about Russia. That's not true. He made it very clear yesterday that there's a longstanding Department of Justice rule where if you are involved in an investigation of a campaign you worked on, you got to step aside.
Right.
So this thing really, the story should have been yesterday, if we were really doing this. Collusion is in our rearview mirror. If you look at Joe Manchin, Dianne Feinstein, Adam Schiff, they all agree on one thing. They can't find any evidence of collusion. James Clapper. I'm talking about people that want to find collusion.
Oh, I didn't see those headlines this morning.
Right. No.
I didn't see those anywhere.
So
no. It's politics, and so they're going to keep doing that.
But the focus could have been on the 39 states that were breached, evidently, by Russian hackers prior to the election. That didn't affect the results, but the fact that they were able to get a lot of the software. If you truly are the Intelligence Committee, that should have been your focus.
You know what, though? I think when Mr. Sessions was talking about, you've known me for decades. You know this is crap. You know it's politics. And yet, at one point, when the new senator from the great state of California was interrogating, so they're going to keep doing that.
But the focus could have been on the 39 states that were breached, evidently, by Russian hackers prior to the election. That didn't affect the results, but the fact that they were able to get a lot of the software. If you truly are the Intelligence Committee, that should have been your focus.
You know what, though? I think when Mr. Sessions was talking about, you've known me for decades. You know this is crap. You know it's politics. And yet, at one point, when the new senator from the great state of California was interrogating...
It's a long-standing policy of the Department of Justice not to comment on conversations that the Attorney General has had with the President of the United States.
Does that mean... Are you claiming executive privilege here today, sir?
I'm not claiming executive privilege because that's the President's power.
Well, his earlier comment on innuendo, blame James Comey. James Comey said something else came to light about the Attorney General, which I can't go over here. I'll go over in closed session. So they asked him about it. He goes, yeah, I have no idea what he's talking about. Right. So what I expect now is, according to a source close to the FBI director, James Comey will somehow, I believe, find a way to get that story into this, whether it's a professor with Columbia or a friend from his days in college.
Well, and let's be real, Democrats are not going to let this go. I mean, if you were watching this yesterday, I kept thinking, what is this all about? What is this for? Why should the American people care?
Sure.
They were trying to get to the bottom of any sort of collusion with the Russians. Right off the top, he made it clear there is nothing there. And so I can't help but think this is just a game of gotcha. When you think about the media, think about the Democrats, they're just trying to find moments that they can catch up.
Are you forgetting about the Mayflower Hotel?
Yeah, he said he didn't remember anything about that. At one point, he made it very clear. The collusion theory is like that Alice in Wonderland thing. It's like through the looking glass. There was a moment of levity, however, that when Tom Cotton realized, you know, everybody's interrogating a number of people were interrogating him like he was an actual KGB agent who had been found in the library with microfilm in his pocket. So Tom Cotton had this exchange with the AG. He really did. Stand by. Here we go. We found the tape. They're looking for the number.
Right.
They're going to Blockbuster.
And it's really funny, we promise.
They found it. Push.
Do you like spy fiction? John le Carré, Daniel Silva, Jason Matthews?
Yeah, Alan First, David Ignatius, Just finished Ignatius's book.
Do you like Jason Bourne or James Bond movies?
No. Yes. I do.
Have you ever, in any of these fantastical situations, heard of a plot line so ridiculous that a sitting United States senator and an ambassador of a foreign government colluded at an open setting with hundreds of other people to pull off the greatest caper in the history of espionage?
Thank you for saying that, Senator Cotton. It's just like through the looking glass. I mean, what is this?
And that's why he wanted to be out there in an open forum. He's got nothing to hide. And he was saying he might have brushed against an ambassador at the Mayflower Hotel. Is that the alleged third meeting?
Right, and Tom Cotton said the only potential crimes that we know about that have happened are the leaks.
I think we all needed that moment.
After 17 months, U.S. citizen Otto Warmbier was finally been released from North Korea. The UVA student in a coma, though, for more than a year, now back on American soil. But 3 other Americans still behind bars in North Korea. And can the Trump administration get them freed through diplomacy? And what happened to this guy? Here to discuss is Fox News contributor and former White House National Security member under President Bush and President Obama, Jillian Turner. Jillian, what does this signal to you, the release of him? By the way, in the condition he's in, a coma.
Well, it's heartbreaking from a human point of view, obviously. I think from a policy perspective, the fact that he was released by the North Koreans bodes well for the other Americans who are trapped illegally inside that country. A month ago, if you had asked me this question, I would have said, you know, Brian, as much as I hope, you know, and I pray that they'll be released, there's no chance. But now, in the wake of this, I think this opens up some new opportunities.
A couple of things. Could they have released him because dying in North Korean custody is murder? And number 2, could it be because Dennis Rodman, one of the most bizarre Americans, landed in North Korea to meet one of the most bizarre leaders?
So the Dennis Rodman theory is alive and well in legitimate concerned international policy communities inside Washington. It sounds like a far-fetched, crazy idea, and it is, but it is also a real possibility. I don't know the answer ultimately on the inside right now, but it's a possibility.
North Korean watchers say this is showing that they're looking to talk. Do you see it that way?
I don't see it that way personally, as much as it pains me to say that. I wish that this was a regime that was not rogue and crazy and the most opaque regime probably on earth, but the reality is that they're not interested in talking to us. I think ultimately anything that they renege, any inch of space that they give our president will be because of threats.
Backdoor diplomacy, you say, could be happening because we don't have no direct diplomatic relations. But we thought China was going to bring some semblance of decency or pressure to their surrogate. Are they?
I don't think that President Trump has put that behind him. I think he's still working that probably on a daily basis as his best option forward. To me, as a policy observer and someone who used to work on this stuff, China is still our best option forward. I don't think President Trump's going to let that go. He might publicly, but I don't think he's going to stop pressuring them until maybe he won't ever stop.
They take a holiday.
President Trump's going to let that go. He might publicly, but I don't think he's going to stop pressuring them until maybe he won't ever stop.
They take a holiday. They have a healthy college student. He comes back in a coma near death.
We won't know about it, or at least we won't know about it until a while after it's happened. But it's a heartbreaking story.
And believe it or not, Dennis Rodman probably knows more than most. Jillian Turner, thanks so much.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, 10 minutes now before the bottom of the hour. Straight ahead. It's one of President Trump's major promises.
Seal up that border. We're going to build a wall. Oh, we'll build a wall. Don't even think about it. We will build a great wall.
Moments ago, we found out when it will get built. And this...
Pennsylvania high school censoring a student's graduation speech because she wanted to thank God. Mariah Bridges hoped to include a prayer including these words, "Lord, surround us with grace and favor everywhere we go." The school said her speech would have broken the law, so she was forced to write a whole new one. Now she says the school district violated her First Amendment rights. Joining us right now is high school graduate Mariah Bridges and her attorney Jeremy Dice with the First Liberty Institute. They join us from near Pittsburgh. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Good morning to you, Mariah. Mariah, why did you want to thank God in your address before the graduates?
My faith has always been a big part of my identity, and so when I went to write my closing remarks, it was more genuine to be true to myself and to thank God in that. when giving my best wishes to my classmates.
Absolutely, and you wanted to thank your parents and the teachers and your coaches and everything else, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then at what point did you find out that the school district had eyeballed your address and said that that simply would not do, that you couldn't possibly say any of those things?
Only 2 days before commencement.
And were you shocked?
I was completely taken aback.
What was the reason they said that they would not allow you to say those things?
They said that it was illegal, but I'm learning that it's not.
They said it was illegal to talk about God. Jeremy?
They did.
Is that true? Would that speech have broken the law?
No, not at all. In fact, the Supreme Court has been clear about this, that students retain their civil rights, their constitutional rights, when they walk through the schoolhouse gates and all the way through the graduation ceremony. Folks can go to firstliberty.org to read the letter we've sent the school district here to remind them what the law actually is, and to remind them, as the Department of Education has said to us and to them, that in their guidelines, that students, when they maintain primary control over their remarks, as Mariah did, are able to reference their religious beliefs, and the school district is not permitted to tell them to espouse only a secular belief. That's discrimination, and it violates the Constitution.
Well, I tell you what, we've got a statement from the principal who says students may still address their class, but they may not do it in the style of a prayer, and most certainly may not recite a prayer that excludes other religions by ending in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ or in the matchless name of Jesus. Is that accurate, Jeremy?
No, look, this was a private speech given by Mariah. It's her private remarks, and the First Amendment fully protects those remarks, even in the graduation ceremony. And so for the school district to say, we want you to be able to provide inspirational comments during the ceremony, but those comments cannot be religious, that in fact violates the Constitution. We call that viewpoint discrimination, and it's wrong.
Mariah, it seems like the last lesson you learned from your school district was that you had to hide your religious beliefs.
Absolutely, which was disappointing because it was my only opportunity to speak at my high school commencement.
All right. What were you going to say? What would you like to say right now?
I just want to tell everyone in the class of 2017, my fellow classmates, that even if I wasn't given the opportunity to pray for them at commencement, that they are still in my prayers, and God bless them, and I wish only the best for them.
All right. Mariah Bridges and Jeremy Dys, thank you both for joining us today from near Pittsburgh.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
All right. What do you think about that? Email us, friends@foxnews.com. You could tweet us or Facebook as well. Meanwhile, coming up on this Wednesday, the media saying the Golden State Warriors have refused to meet with President Trump after winning the NBA title. But you know what? That could just be #fake news. We're going to set the record straight coming up. And we are celebrating today, June 14th, Flag Day, in a very big way with Janice Dean, the Flag Machine.
Steve, 240th birthday of our American flag. We are going to fire this balloon up, the world's biggest American flag, 5 stories high, almost 80 foot wide. And it was built in 2002, just right after 9/11. It's commemorating Flag Day, and we're going to get this raised up into the sky and fly this balloon.
And we are back with a Fox News alert. At least 6 people are now dead as a massive fire tears through a London high-rise overnight. Look at that.
Yeah, no kidding. Dozens more rushed to the hospitals there. There are now concerns that that high-rise could actually collapse.
Well, Foreign Affairs correspondent Benjamin Hall is live on the scene in London with the very latest. Let me see, 2 terror attacks and now this, Benjamin. What's going on?
Brian, Stephen Ainsley, this news cycle just doesn't seem to end. Tragic story after tragic story. This one, a deadly fire overnight right in the heart of London, just by Notting Hill Gate. And this is over 10 hours after the fire started, and still flames erupting from some of these windows. It began, as we know, just before 1 a.m. Hundreds managed to escape, but we do not yet know how many were trapped inside. There are 120 apartments inside the building, over 500 residents. And it was a massive operation overnight. 45 fire fire engines, over 200 firemen, some of whom were here in just 6 minutes. But the fire commissioner saying that in 29 years, he's never seen anything like this. We know that children and elderly are among the missing. 6, as you say, are confirmed dead, but we expect that number to rise. And smoke still pouring from the building as they try to assess the real toll here. It began on the 4th floors and it spread quickly upwards through the 24 floors. And I can tell you that stories from the inside are chilling.
We could hear people screaming, help me, and flashing their phone lights to let people know that they were there. But it's awful. I just can't believe the way it spread.
And we also heard of people using sheets to try and climb out of windows, and people watching as survivors are desperately called out from their rooms. It was built in 1974, this building, and just a couple of years ago it had a $13 million redevelopment, but apparently it was only cosmetic. They didn't put in fire exits, they didn't put in sprinklers, and so people here in this district are saying, you know, many of the anger, of course, is palpable, and people saying this is murder, and there are, of course, big questions being asked about why more wasn't done there, especially as it was well documented, these fire hazards. But again, we're still waiting to get the death toll from this. 6 confirmed, that number expected to rise soon, and we'll bring that from the scene.
Benjamin, do we have any idea how it started?
None at all at this moment. It was early in the morning. We just know it started on the 4th floor and it rose very quickly because of this new cladding that they had put on the building, this new $13 million overhaul. That is said to blame for taking it up so quickly.
All right, Benjamin Hall, we'll keep a close eye on that. Just heartbreaking.
No kidding. They put a new outside on the building for, you know, cosmetic purposes, but they didn't put any fire exits nor sprinklers in it. And
you think, yeah.
It's a big problem.
The one place you're safe is at home.
Right.
You would hope.
That's awful.
All right, it is now 25 minutes before the top of the hour on this Wednesday, and Jillian joins us. Jillian joins us with news from the Commonwealth of Virginia.
That is right. Good morning to you guys, to you at home as well. Let's start here. The race for the next governor of Virginia is now set. Former RNC chairman Ed Gillespie narrowly winning the primary vote to win the GOP nomination. Gillespie will face current Lieutenant Governor Ralph Northam in November. Now, one of them will replace Governor Terry McAuliffe, a fierce Hillary Clinton supporter who is rumored to be gearing up for a presidential run in 2020. And it was one of President Trump's signature campaign promises.
Seal up that border. We're going to build a wall. Oh, we'll build a wall. Don't even think about it. We will build a great wall.
Well, turns out that could happen sooner than many thought. The acting Border Patrol chief telling Congress the construction could start as soon as March. We'll keep you posted. Fake news aimed at President Trump busted hours after spreading around the internet. It started with CNBC's Josh Brown on Twitter claiming NBA champions Golden State Warriors, quote, are skipping the White House visit as a unanimous team decision per report. Well, that tweet has since been deleted after the team said there's no decision or even an invitation. Brown defending himself, tweeting, quote, just repeated a few other verified users on Twitter who said it early this morning. I have no idea if it's true, hence per reports. Okay. And remember the guy who wanted prison shackles instead of the old ball and chain? Well, guess what? His plan, it backfired. Lawrence Ripple sentenced to 6 months of house arrest for robbing a bank. After handing a bank teller a note demanding cash in Kansas City, he waited for cops to arrive. Ripple telling investigators he would rather be in jail than at home with his wife, but now the only place he can be is at home with his wife. So there you have it. Let's look at your headlines.
That is the most bizarre story, Jillian, with a bizarre ending.
Thank you, Jillian.
Thank you so much.
Yep. All right, you know what it is. It's, well, I'll tell you the time, 23 minutes before the top of the hour. I'll tell you the day, too. It's November 4th. It's June 14th, which is, by the way, November's a great day, too. It's a great month. It's Flag Day, and we're honoring the Stars and Stripes with a visit to the world's largest free-flying American flag.
For that, Janice Dean has gone across the Hudson River. She is in Hoboken, New Jersey, the former home of Frank Sinatra. Ooh. She has it her way with a big flag today.
Hey, Janice.
I had it my way. Let's talk to Barry DeLibero because we are inflating this giant American flag. And Barry, you are the creator and the pilot of this. Tell me how this came about.
Well, my wife had wanted it for years, and I said no because these are incredibly expensive to build. And then the day 9/11 happened, my wife came out to me with the drawings again with tears in her eyes as she was actually watching it on Fox. And she said, now's the time to build this. And we ordered it the next week. And it started in May of 2002, and for 15 years we go around the country with the balloon, and PNC has sponsored us for this the whole time. It's been great.
It is the largest American flag.
It's the largest flying American flag. It is, when you see it in the sky, it is a flying American flag. It's awesome. It's an FAA registered aircraft.
Okay. Wow, and you're a pilot. I mean, this is what you do.
Correct. I am an FAA certified pilot.
Tell us what is going on right now. I mean, this is a labor of love here. A lot of folks have to be out here to help inflate this.
A lot of volunteerism to get this thing to go. Right now what we're doing is we're pushing cold air into it. It's called cold packing. After we get it fully inflated with cold air, I'll check some of the mechanisms inside, make sure everything's okay, and then we'll use those burners that you were using earlier to shoot the hot air into it and then stand it up.
Sounds very scientific.
It's extremely scientific. Hot air, go up.
Excellent. That's what I mean, science is my game, and the weather has to cooperate. And we had some pretty good rain before this happened, but hopefully skies will clear. Can you fly it in the rain?
No, you really shouldn't fly it in the rain because it becomes heavy. It's just like the space shuttle, you know, when it gets water on it and it freezes and all that type of thing. With this, it increases the weight of it. It puts a lot of stress on the aircraft.
Okay, the pressure is on. The weather is going to be good for this. Do I get to fly?
Certainly. We get it up, you're going in.
Fantastic. Thank you for celebrating Flag Day with us, Barry.
Thank you for being here with us.
Okay, all morning long, we are going to be watching this inflate. When's it going to be up in the air, Barry?
Depending upon what happens, 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes.
So you have to stay with us on Fox and Friends. Steve, Abby, and Brian, we are going to be flying the world's largest American flag
Awesome.
for Flag Day.
All right.
Cannot wait for that. And I want Barry's jacket. Look at that.
He's a proud
nice
American. All right,
jacket.
Barry and JD over in Hoboken, thank you. We'll take you out there as soon as they've got plenty of cold air in and then the hot air.
Right, no one's blowing that up with their mouth. That's a compressor, right?
It seemed to be some sort of...
Yeah.
I'd love to see you try, though.
Right, I would love to see you try, too. All right, meanwhile, 20 minutes before the top of the hour, Democrats laughed at President Trump when he said there was widespread voter fraud in the election.
There is no evidence to support what the president has said. The fact is that it's a non-existent... It's so...
I know what you mean. But one reporter just found out dead people, minors, and non-citizens were on the Indiana voter rolls. The reporter who broke that story here next.
That is a story. Plus, we're helping out.
So glad you're up. Some quick headlines now. President Trump giving the Pentagon its power back, opening the door to sending more troops to Afghanistan. The move comes after Secretary of Defense James Mattis testified the Taliban is surging and we're not winning. Thousands more troops could be added to the already 8,400 stationed in Afghanistan. And a major step forward in the fight for VA reform, the House overwhelmingly approving a new bill, sending it to the White House for President Trump's signature. It will make it easier for the VA to fire employees and improve accountability and boost protections for whistleblowers. That's good news, and that's legislation.
Meanwhile, what do a felon, a non-U.S. citizen, and a dead person all have in common? Well, it turns out they were all registered to vote in the great state of Indiana.
Yeah, the Indiana Voter Registration Project is under investigation for fraud, and employees are facing prison time and thousands of dollars now in fines.
All right, here to tell us more is the reporter who broke this story, Tony Cook with the Indianapolis Star. Tony, how'd you go about proving this?
There's been an ongoing Indiana State Police investigation for several months. This dates back to August, so well before the election. And what prosecutors have now alleged is that 12 people affiliated with this group, mostly canvassers for this group, submitted voter registration forms for people who were either fictitious or who hadn't given them permission to submit registration forms on their behalf.
Sure.
And among those people were the folks that you guys just listed, you know, a felon, someone who was not a U.S. citizen, a minor, and others. In some cases, they were just registering family members whose birthdays they happened to know. In other cases, they were looking up names in a phone book and filling it out that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what's been going on here in Indianapolis.
So, Tony, I know that, you know, a lot of groups have canvassers who go out and try to find more people to vote, and that's a good thing. However, when you break the rules, that's a bad thing. And in this case, the canvassers were pressured, according to your report, to do a certain number per day or they wouldn't get paid, right?
Right. So canvassers told police that they were expected to get at least 10 voter registrations per shift, and that if they didn't, they wouldn't be called back for work. So they felt pressure to get those 10 registrations. If it was getting close to the end of their shift and they didn't have that number, in some cases they would fill out information fraudulently, according to prosecutors.
Tony, what has the reaction been to your reporting? I mean, you would think there would be more national attention when something like this is found out.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things to keep in mind is that the prosecutor here in Marion County says that there's no evidence that any of these voter registration forms that were fraudulent resulted in anybody voting who wasn't supposed to be voting, and there's also not any evidence that anybody was disenfranchised because of this, although one individual whose information was used without his permission said he did have trouble when he went to the polls because his name appeared in the voter rolls multiple times. So obviously this is a huge concern. But there's not necessarily evidence that anybody voted who wasn't supposed to vote.
Right. So because they're on the rolls, it doesn't mean a dead person showed up to vote. But you also think there's something fundamentally wrong with the system. There's got to get financial incentives off these canvassers so they're not forced to, the profit motive pushing you to get people, make names up, or get dead people or put dead people on these rolls, right?
Right. I mean, regardless of the political affiliation of this group, it does appear that the motive here for these canvassers was, to stay employed, not necessarily to, sway the election in one political direction or another. So that's certainly something. I wouldn't be surprised if Indiana lawmakers take a look at this and, think about ways to legislate this so that you don't necessarily have a profit motive driving individuals to create fictitious registrations.
No kidding.
No, all right. That's well, great reporting on your part, Tony. Great to have you with us this morning. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. Still ahead on this Wednesday, Newt Gingrich versus the ladies of The View on the media's coverage of President Donald Trump.
It was all noisy, but it wasn't all positive. No, it was 98% of it was positive, Newt. I have a question. I know you disagree with it, but I don't care. I know what I saw.
Newt Gingrich is here live next. There he is right there. Got a new book called Understanding Trump.
And Attorney General Jeff Sessions comes out swinging in the Senate hearing, but the media is focused on the font size. More on that.